everybody is affected in the same way. And so it's almost like drawing a new starting line and say, okay, guys, run again. You come up with a simple to-do list, what you will be or what you aspire to be, and what is that 2.0 design that you have for your organization.
So today we have the pleasure of welcoming Pranav Bhanage today to our interview series. I am Paris Segal from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick intro of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known claims globally every month. And now for our guest. Pranav is an experienced CEO who has helped oil and gas downstream businesses in Asia and successfully delivered complex turnaround initiatives. He started his career in the technology space about 20 years ago and has worked in management consulting for about 10 years with companies like Boston Consulting Group and Frost and Sullivan. And over 6 years now in oil and gas downstream businesses like with the Pranavs group. Pranav thus brings in a strong blend of strategy consulting, implementation, digital enablement, and hands-on business management experience across key markets of Asia Pacific. Besides his professional achievements, Pranav takes pride in being able to make tangible differences to lives of employees and business partners by creating profitable enterprises. Moreover, he has taken an active role in mentoring and coaching junior staff across the world. Pranav has spent last 20 years living in various countries such as the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, China, USA, and Indonesia. He has continuously adapted to different work cultures there, and whilst at work, acquired good palate for global food, taste for global music, and movies. Having lived out of suitcases for many years naturally makes Pranav an absolute junkie for airlines and hotel loyalty miles. So, welcome, Pranav. We are thrilled to have you.
Hey, hello everybody. Hi to the viewers.
So, Pranav, the first question that I had for you is can you share with us the story of finding your passion and getting to the position you are in now today?
There is no real story here. I think it's more of the theme is more of a discovery. I mean, I've done so many different roles and so many different jobs. It's really about finding out. It was all about finding out what I don't like, and then finding the next sort of a goal to see whether I enjoy the other thing or not. So when I started back in the IT space, I mean, I'm an engineer by
Mhm.
by training, and I think I did not really enjoy the hardcore engineering piece when I was there. So coming out of it, I dabbled with IT. So it was back in early 2000. It was the boom thing, and it was quite exciting to work in that space. But having done that for 3 years, again I realized that perhaps this is not what is bringing out the best out of me. So then I undertook an MBA and then started doing consulting, which I started to enjoy as the things went along. And so the thematic there for us really is about understanding, taking part in different things. So it's more of a portfolio. You do many things, and then you realize that this is something will probably get the best out of me. And then I realized that consulting, working with clients, trying to solve clients' problems, much like what your teams also do from a solution standpoint. I think that's something I began to enjoy. And through that, I also discovered that I really started to enjoy the strategy implementation piece of it, which is very different from a strategy design, where you have to work with different people, you have to really get your ideas across, push your agendas through complex organization structures, etc. And then you can see a tangible shareholder value return, or even you see a lot of sort of a people development kind of results that come out of it. So that's something I started to enjoy as I went along, and then I started to find opportunities which were giving me that sort of an experience. So it's and it's sort of built upon each other. So So eventually I said, okay, if I can advise um, big CEOs or big country setups to actually implement strategies, I should run my own P&L as such at some point in time. So it's sort of built up that way. For us, I wouldn't say that, unlike some other stories that you guys have shared on this platform, where somebody has an insight right away. It's like, okay, guitar is my passion,
Yeah.
or cricket is my passion, or writing or movies. I think mine is more of a story of discovery.
But that's an interesting take. It's your quest of finding something that you like and enjoy working that drives you towards, right? Interesting. Thank you so much for
Correct.
that detail.
Quest is a good word. Yeah, quest is a good word.
So, move on to my next question for you, Pranav. Now, India is a country that worships education and labels. How do you believe a disciplined approach to life and education has helped you achieve or succeed in various roles?
A very interesting question. I think. I'll probably break it into two parts. I think the the label worship versus disciplined approach. I think there are two different parts to that. See, see, if you look at it from a perspective of label worship, right? And if you look at the history of recruiting, say 100 years ago, the recruiting was entirely based on what we call as references. So, if I have a shop, my uncle says, hey, why don't you hire this guy, and used to hire him. So the element that the human enterprises were trying to find out was actually the element of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust this stranger in difficult circumstances? Can I trust him with my money? Can I trust her with my confidential data and the abilities to actually perform for me, etc. So over the years, I think that reference sort of went down, and then you started looking at labels
Mm.
as a marker of trust. So, for example, if you are from a A-lister school, it is a great marker to say that, hey, I think we can trust this girl or this guy because he's been there. He has actually gone through the rigor of 4 years, 5 years, 2 years, whatever that is. He hasn't, he or she hasn't really been chucked out of the school or whatever. He or she has done well. So it's sort of a quasi, I would say, a marker of the character and the trust. And I think that's gotten into a, in my personal opinion, it's gotten into a very, it's almost you're putting the cart before the horse here, because it becomes so much blinded by the institutions, the names, and etc. It's sort of, there's this whole element of why it is used is getting missed out in certain areas, and then it can become a bit more biased, or it can be perceived as becoming more biased. If you steer a little bit on the other element of discipline, being disciplined, uh, that is sometimes a that's what sometimes the organizations or recruiters want to find out. So, for example, if you go through a very rigorous course
Mm.
and you stay on course and you better, then it doesn't mean that you're smarter than the others, but you are structured, you are disciplined. You take on an ambition of 4 years, and you sort of close it off, tick all the boxes. So you will fit in a typical sort of a bell curve in the middle. So you're
Mm.
not a superstar, but you're not a complete dud. So at least you satisfy the 80% needs of a typical organization. So the rigor, the discipline to take on a course, to complete a course, and do all aspects of it in a more studious manner or structured manner. I think that's one thing that you can judge out of the
Mhm.
people coming out of these institutions. And much like myself or yourself, or much like most of us, we have gone through these structured education programs, and I think it has helped us to definitely be more disciplined. We've done that, and I think that sort of trains your mind to
Mhm.
take on challenges in the organizations, which are much the same. Much time bound as such. It has to have the discipline of doing it. The actual um, the the whole element of actually taking on a project, looking at all aspects of the project, ticking on all the boxes of the project, pushing it through to conclusion, and making an impact. Of course, one last bit on this, where whether this is the best way for
Mhm.
the for the talent of the future, well, there are now doubts about it. I mean, there
Right.
is a lot of trend around homeschooling, learning at your own pace. You don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be sort of going through a structured program. So there's a lot more emphasis on the right brain, and there's a lot more emphasis on individualizing education, etc. Which will, I think, in my personal opinion, will become more of a norm. I think if we move 20 years into the future, I think the way our kids are learning
Yeah.
uh, is very different from at least what we were doing when we were at their age. So I think it is going to change. When they come into the workforce, I don't know whether the organizations will be able to understand whether he is disciplined or not, or structured or not. But again, whether that skill of being disciplined, structured, typically loyal, etc., whether those skills are necessary or not in those new age organizations is again a big question mark. So I think interesting times as we move ahead.
Correct. Yeah, interesting perspective because all these guys right now are getting everything at convenience, whether it is education or anything else, right?
Precisely.
So it's going to be questionable and interesting to see if the discipline of being organized part of the house plays a big role or not.
Uh,
Inter-
yeah, that it is. I don't know. I mean, I think it'll pan out in front of our eyes. I think by the
Yeah,
time we retire, we should be able to see some of it.
thank you. So over to the next question, Pranav. India is a young country. What are the kind of challenges that you face in hiring and engaging the right talent to succeed in this marketplace model?
I mean, India is not one India. I think we all know that there is India, Bharat. There are so many
Mhm.
appellations that we carry, and it's really a continental size setup with its own specific behaviors. In a growing economy, you need people with a lot of ideas, but you also need people with that perseverance to actually take your idea to a conclusion in a future. Um, and these two things is something that um, would come out as a key as what you require from the young people coming up. The third element to these two things is actually the ability of the individuals to really take a wider perspective, look at different perspectives, talk to different people, talk to different, take conflicting ideas, and actually coalesce them into a tangible sort of a product or a project, and then implement it. So three elements there. I think definitely you need some amount of crazy thinking. You definitely need some amount of some amount of discipline to actually conclude your projects. But the third important thing is really how do you become comfortable with conflicting ideas. We do have ideation. I think we're really good at ideation. And having worked in different areas in the world, I think I find that a lot of new ideas come in here on a daily basis. People are extremely entrepreneurial. Um, we really want to drive it. On the elements of how do we package it, how do we have the perseverance to close what you've taken, and how do we live with conflicts? How do we become comfortable with conflicting ideas? I think that's something that we will as a workforce would need to perhaps work on a little bit as we go along this journey of growth in India.
So over to the next question, Pranav. Being in the lubricants industry, you might have had a lot of gig and seasonal or outsourced workers in your organization. How do you think really this gig economy in India is going to change the workplace of the future?
Well, I think gig economy itself is a new term, but I think if you look at the Indian economic setup for many years, we've always had these bunch of people doing odd jobs, right? You
Hmm.
would see a person. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, this guy would fix our furniture, would do something else during the agri season. He will go and harvest. Then used to go and help somebody to paint a house. So we've always had, and we still have a very large informal economy, and there is that there is a gig element to it. I think it's a new age term, but I think in essence, it's always existed in Indian context. We've always, I mean, we've the economy has given it a nice term, and it's sort of it is like quasi professionalize this whole thing, right? So you can now register yourself as a driver or a delivery guy or something like that,
Yeah.
or an odd man help, and then you sort of formalize a little bit on what you've been anyway doing for a long period of time. So it's from that is a little bit different from a contractual or outsourced workforce, in my opinion. I think gig is driven by what I would want to do, and I can switch on, switch off anytime I want. I think contractual is still may not be on the payrolls, but actually is still a defined job with a certain amount of benefits. The post COVID-19 sort of situation, I think there will be some questions asked on whether does it make a lot of sense to have that personal freedom
Hmm.
without any benefits. And it doesn't mean that a gig economy is bad or good. It just means that for an individual needs to answer that vis-a-vis benefits, how do you weigh a personal freedom versus sort of guaranteed benefits that come along with a more focused and a more long-termish job? And that question would be asked by the people who are participating in the gig economy, not necessarily from the organizations which use the gig economy, but for the participants. I
Mm-hmm.
think organization-wise, if I may, I mean, if I may add to that, Ansad, there is always a place for different kind of needs of the organization. So those needs will not change. I mean, there's some needs of the organizations are temporary in nature. Some needs are permanent. So I think the needs will not change dramatically. In my opinion, I think it's more of the participant perspective may change.
Okay, Pranav. So we move on to the next question that we had for you. So the next question is, what are some of the focus areas and techniques that you use right now to manage change, which we are seeing around? And how do you go about inspiring and aligning people to the vision and the objective that you set?
I think one perspective of change is what does the management or the shareholders want? What is the shareholder value that you want to drive through change? I think the other aspect is the people aspect. So what does the change mean for me or you or any employee of the organization? So the I think the fundamental principle that at least I push my team or push myself or push anybody who's into this process is that okay, what does this mean for us? How do you define the to be state? You know, how do you define the 2.0 or a 3.0 to your people? And the people in this case, in a large organizations, it could be tens and thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sort of communicate the to be state? And it's actually quite difficult to do because it requires clarity of thought of the people who are involved in the change. And um, that's the first step, you know, in order to actually start uh, mobilizing the organization towards a change. I think designing of the to be, what would be the new organization? I mean, you know, there are so many experts around the world. A lot of consulting companies do a great job in actually, you know, advising, saying, okay, how you want to go about, what you want to do. But sometimes the translation of that to what does it mean for me as an employee or as a participant of the organization, not the shareholders or the management, but actually the employee, larger base. That sometimes is missing. So that's something I do. I mean, at least I push people to say, okay, what does it mean? What do you really want to do? What is this organization 2.0? What is it going to be for the people? Is my life going to be easy? Am I going to be digitally enabled? Will my job be there or not? I think those are the kind of questions that those come up from the bottom of the pyramid, and then they have to be answered in a more structured way. So if you are able to give the clarity of vision of where you want to go and what that to be state is, then what I've seen in my experience is that you are able to
Mhm.
rally the organization towards change. It's also personal, right? I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, why don't you move to Bangalore?" or say, "Why don't you move to Delhi?" You would ask, "Okay, what does it mean for me to move to Delhi? I mean, what's my life there going to be? Which school will my kids go to? Where would I live? How's going to be the quality of life?" Now, that's really the simple translation of the vision to an individual. So in our personal lives, we actually follow that and we push a lot. But
Mhm.
when it comes to an organizational behavior, you probably miss this. And you miss this simple insight that, hey, you're taking 20,000 people on this journey. You got to really tell them that, guys, this is, there's a better city out there, or there is a better life out there where we are going to go. And that's why you'll rally people around. Many transformation projects have not delivered to the level that was expected. May not be an abject failure, but it doesn't go to the level that you wanted. And a lot of it is to do with you know translating your vision to what does it mean for people. Because at
Right.
the end of the day, they will be the ones who would be the journeymen and the beneficiaries of.
So much on that viewpoint. So the next question that we had for you, Pranav, is given the economic impact of the coronavirus that we are seeing about us right now, what should organizations look to do given the recovery from the pandemic is supposed to be slow and gradual? And do you think or do you anticipate that the market view to the change from business to employees and people? Or would you think that the organization should be more socially oriented compared to driven economically?
These are very broad questions. I think good questions, and you might get good insights if you do a panel discussion just around this question. But I mean, I'll take liberty to take my stance here. I think first and foremost, obviously, it's an unprecedented crisis. I think you've probably heard this term everywhere, and I mean, I'm really glad and really thrilled to see the way the healthcare workers, the regular people on the street, right from the people who are managing our utilities, supplies, all these things in India, they're doing a phenomenal job of just maintaining our sanctity at home. I think it's a phenomenal job. It's a wake sort of a wake up call for us as humans, right? Because we and our generation especially, which we were always thinking that we are invincible, we can do whatever we want, we can transform cities in 3 days, we can dam the rivers and change the flow, we can do whatever we want, right? We can really do whatever we want. And I think we have grown up with that kind of a positive sense of positive sense of outlook, where we say, okay, nature is, by the way, I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. I can set up crazy ambitious growth, and this is sort of a call that says, hey, sorry, I think you got to respect nature. I mean, at the end of the day, we are one of the many organisms on this planet, and much like anybody else, we are also vulnerable to these kind of things. And I think that itself would, in my opinion, I think it should, before the organization, it should change people's outlook towards their own lives and what they want to do and how they want to prioritize. I think that will happen. I mean, I would definitely see that a lot of people would try to drive work-life balance, try to live a healthy life, try to at least get close to their families or friends and all that stuff. I think that would be the first wave of change, in my opinion. I think one thing is common there. It's a generation defining change. So in our generation, we've never had this kind of a situation which defined a generation. So it's like, and it's ubiquitously affected everybody across the world. So after perhaps the great wars in the beginning of the last century, we've
Mhm.
not had something that has impacted everybody at almost a uniform, indiscriminate way. And definitely for economy, it's a generation defining. change. There will be a pre-COVID and a post-COVID outlook for all the organizations, small or big, complex or simple. I think everybody. And now, what that change will be, uh, I mean, there is no prescriptive way of looking at it. There can be only opinions, and it differs from industry to industry. I think fundamentally people will look at, you know, uh, start to value a little bit more on the profitability, the prudence of profitable growth versus a high risk growth or a highly levered growth. I think those kind of questions will come up first. There will definitely be a thought around, sharing economy. Should I have my own personal space, or should I share it with other people or not? I think those existential questions will be asked. Um, there will be there will definitely be an impetus towards, deliveries and getting stuff at home and office delivered, rather than, going and venturing and doing everything on your own. There'll be definitely questions around work from home, uh, reducing the travel back and forth to office. I think those things would come up. So there are these changes that will happen from a whole, directional perspective for us. Now, specifically on the questions that you asked on how does it change the outlook of the employer towards the employee, I think definitely a lot of organizations have responded in a very humane way, and it is very good to see. I think overall, um, you know, we've always we've tried to put people first. We're checking on, how to help people. Uh, there are the organizations are ensuring that, people don't get affected in the crisis, etc. So there's a lot of positivity, at least that can be read and heard about in the near term of this. But a long term uh, impact of this I think it's very hard to be prescriptive, because it's again will go back to what is the what are the companies want to be as post COVID, right? How do they reinvent themselves in this crisis and come out of this and define a new version of themselves? I
Mm.
think that will define their people's strategy. So there could be some knee-jerk reactions towards uh, managing people better, and etc. etc. But in a long term, again, it goes back to the fundamental of business. Fundamental of business is what is going to be my post-COVID version of my business, and
Mm.
then how do the employees enable that? I think that fundamental equation will not change.
Thank you. It's an interesting take. It's testing times, and I do believe and agree with you. It's kind of a great equalizer in what we've been seeing, right?
Correct, correct. I mean, everybody is affected in the same way,
Mm.
and so it's almost like drawing a new starting line and say, okay, guys, run again. And it's a great opportunity for people who can, in
Yeah.
that this period, really, exercise, do well, eat right, and run faster.
Yeah.
Those people
Absolutely.
who run faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for that insight and your view on that, Pranav. So the last question we had for you, Pranav, for today is any important sound bites that you would like to leave our viewers with?
The Given the testing time that we are in, I think the most important thing that keeps me motivated also is that I look at every crisis as an opportunity, and that's the with that mantra you can actually, self motivate yourself. You can you can actually open a fresh piece of paper and a pencil, which I do every day, and try to draw out what we can do as an organization, or what I can do as a person, post say June, July, when things normalize. And uh, it's given us chance to rethink our priorities, which I think we should all do. And I hope that, all the viewers who are going to watch this, I think at least you come up with a simple to-do list post COVID-19, what you will be or what you aspire to be, and then of course for an organization perspective, what is that 2.0 design that you have for your organizations, whether it's a startup for a large company.
Got it. Got it. Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Pranav, as part of this series. I
Thanks,
really
Pranav.
appreciate your time and sharing your views with us. It's been an enriching and learning experience for me personally, and will surely think for our viewers too. Thank you
Thank
so
you, Pranav. Thanks.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Let's keep in touch. Have a healthy and healthy life ahead of you. Thank you so much, Pranav.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.